Hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching. This is me, Mr. P, and in this video of Proxmox Home Server series, I will show you how to configure Proxmox SDN. Then I will show you how to configure firewall lock Proxmox SDN virtual zone to only push data within itself and to internet, but not to your local network. So let's begin. First thing, what I want to show you, or just give you a bit more information, is what is Proxmox SDN. And Proxmox SDN is software-defined network. And this is a feature that is available by default in Proxmox version 8.1 or newer. But if you upgrade it from older version, you need to install this additional package inside every node. But basically, in a nutshell, Proxmox SDN is a feature available inside the Proxmox that allows you to virtualize networks and create basically virtual zones, networks, and subnets. So you can have a network inside the network. Pretty much you can hide your entire home lab virtual machines and LXC containers inside the network that no one else will be able to access. And let's say if you scan your network, they won't be able to find them because they're going to be inside the virtualized zone network. So let's start with the setup. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I will show you everything, or all the setup will be done with using this demo Proxmox cluster. You don't need to have a Proxmox cluster to utilize Proxmox SDN. You don't need to have a Proxmox cluster to follow this tutorial. There will be one additional firewall rule that I need to create because I'm using cluster. In your case, if you're using a single node, you don't need to create this extra rule. But when the time comes with the firewall setup, I will show you, I'll explain which rule I'm setting up because I'm running a cluster. But if you even set up that rule while you're running a single node, it will take no effect. But you will understand a bit more when the time comes with the Proxmox firewall setup. So number one thing, what you should do, or what I recommend you to do, is just double check if this package is already installed. So I'm just going to copy this and I'll go to node 1. Inside the node 1 shell, I'm just going to go paste it in, and I'll get the message saying I don't need to install anything because this is already installed. And I know that it's installed on every single node. Next thing, once you install that, what you need to do, you need to navigate to this file, and check if this line exists. So again, I'll go for example, let's say to node 3, and I'll put cat space /etc/ network /interfaces. And I can see this line exists at the end of the file, and pretty much all these 3 nodes are exactly mirrored image. As this is my demo for this video. So yeah, you need to install this, or make sure that this is installed in each node, and make sure that this line exists inside this file, inside each node. As you can see here, configuration file on all the nodes. So once you have, yes, that's installed, and yes, the line exists inside this file, you can follow through this tutorial, this guide, and you need to install DNS MaskQ. So I'll go to node 1, and I'll type apt install DNS MaskQ, and I'll combine additional command, which is systemctl disable --now DNS MaskQ. So what this command will do is pretty much the DNS MaskQ is used inside the Proxmox to do all the DHCP leasing IP addresses, but you need to run that, install that to make sure that it's running, and then disable it inside systemctl to make sure that this will not clash with your proper DHCP server, let's say in your router. But this DNS MaskQ will still be used by Proxmox SDN when you're creating a virtual machine inside the virtual network. The DNS MaskQ function will be triggered to get the IP address. So instead of running this line and then running this line, I'm combining all these in one. So I want to install DNS MaskQ. And then once that is successful, this is what $& means. When this line or this command is successful, run this. So DNS MaskQ, and to make sure that I don't need to retype this, I'm just going to copy and run that. So yes, I want to install that. So it's installing the DNS MaskQ. Once installation is done, it's going to run a second part of the command, and it will go and disable it. So here we go, executing disable DNS MaskQ. So I'm going to do the same thing on node 2, and then I'll need to do the same thing on node 3. And that is it. DNS MaskQ is installed on all 3 nodes and is disabled on all 3 nodes. Now I am ready to set up Proxmox SDN. I need to go into data center options and then go and find SDN option. So if I click on that, I do see 3 lines showing up here because I have 3 nodes. If you're running single node, you will see 1 node showing up here. As you can see, software-defined network, local network exists on all 3 nodes. I will create my own, and to do that, I need to first go into zones. Inside the zones, I need to click on Add, and it gives me a bunch of options here. I can pick between Simple, VLAN, Q-in-Q, VXLAN, or eVPN. In this video, I'm going to go and set up Simple one. And now I need to give, once I clicked on Simple, I need to give ID number. So I'll call this Virtual Net. I think I reached the limit. It needs to be 8 characters, so VirtNet. Then MTU, I can use auto, but some people online are mentioning that they're getting some trouble with the auto option of MTU. You can select, for example, 1450 or 1460 try to fix this issue. I'll leave a couple of links in the description below for you to go and check it out if you're having a trouble with MTU. Under nodes, I will select as default or leave as a default, which says all. So it means this VirtNet virtual zone will be created in all of my nodes. And most important one I need to click is Automate DHCP. If you don't see the Automate DHCP, it means advanced option is deselected. You just select that and tick here to make sure automated DHCP is enabled. Rest of them I'll leave as default. Click Add. And now I do see a new zone created by the name VirtNet. It's simple and it's in IPAM PVE. That's okay. And then state it says new. Next thing I need to click on VNets. And then I click on Create to create a new virtual network. And this is where you create the actual network. So this network, I will call this network, for example, VNet1, for example. Then you can give alias name. So Virtual Network 1, which can be a bit more, you can explain a bit more why this VNet etc. So give a bit more this description or longer name for you to easier to know what you just created, why this is created, because you can have a lot of them here showing up. Then under zone, I need to select that this belongs inside the VirtNet zone, which we created a couple of steps ago. Then you can start and setting up VLAN aware and give it a tag. For simplicity of this video, I'll leave those blank. I will not go and set up VLANs. I'm going to click Create, and this is created. Next, I need to create a VNet, and then I can have an option to create subnets. I click on a subnet, and now I can specify the subnet. Subnet is like what kind of IP number style you want. In a simple, very simple terms, it's like how do you want your IP address to look like? So in my case, my real local IP address, all the IP addresses are 192.168.178 dot whatever. So let's say for this video, I will create, let's say, do something simple like 10.10.10.0/24. /24 means that the last number which says 0 can be between 2 and 254. Number 1 will be automatically assigned for gateway, and 255 is already selected for network communication. So you can't pick 1 or 255. So I'm just gonna click on like this. This means it's gonna be between 2 and 254. Gateway is gonna be a same IP address, but ending with 1. And you need to select SNAT if you want the zone of this virtual network to communicate to the internet. Otherwise, if you will leave that off, you can't, let's say, ping Google or update packages. It's going to be like there is no internet connection at all. DNS zone prefix, I leave as empty as by default. Next, I can specify the range of IP addresses. So click Add, and like mentioned, you can't pick up NAS1.1 as it's already used, and you can't pick up IP address 255 as it's already been used. So I'm just going to say I want IP addresses to be between 10.10.10.100 and 10.10.10.200. I will click Create. So now I do get option here, it says new, and I can see the label new, and I'll click on the zone, it says new here. To accept all the configurations that you just created, you click back on a SDN and press the button Apply. Once you click Apply, logs will start showing you that there is a reload network all happening, which creates this SDN network for you. So if I close down, I can see the new network popping up next to each of the nodes on the left-hand side. Just one of them is still doing its things. And I can see here in the list it says available, available, and the last one just changed available. And that is it. You created the Proxmox SDN virtual network. Right now, let's go and start setting things up. I'll click on the PBE node 1. I'll click on a create container. Let's name this container, for example, 300. No, let's do a 1010, for example. And our name will be demo SDN 001. Provide the root password for the user root. Under templates, I will use Ubuntu 22.04 LXC Container template. Disk is fine, 8 GB. CPU is fine, memory is fine, as it's just for demo. Under network, I have an option right now to choose bridge between VMBR, which is the default Proxmox network, and which is linked to my home network, or I can choose VNet1 that we just created, and this is where the alias name shows up. If you're going to have, for example, VNet1, VNet10, VNet, VNet ABC, 2 weeks later you will forget why VNet ABC even exists. So by adding alias comment, you will be able to see that, okay, this is virtual network 1. That's fine. I know what that is. Then I can choose DHCP. DNS I'll leave like this and configure. I get the list what just happened. I will not run this, and I'm just going to click finish. Oh, sorry, I will not take start LXC container once created. So Proxmox right now is creating LXC container. So let's wait for this to finish. So it's creating LXC container by the name of 1010. And now, oh sorry, demo SDN 001 and ID number 1010. So LXC container is created. If I click on a data center and scroll down in this option list and click on IPAM, I do see that this LXC container will receive IP address 100. And inside IPAM, you will be able to see all the LXC containers and VMs, what kind of IP addresses they will get from the DHCP server. So I can see that inside the VirtNet zone, there is a network called VNet, and there is a subnet 10.10.10.0, and there is a gateway created, and the ID number of the virtual machine or LXC container will receive IP address or receive the IP address ending with 100. So now I'm going to click on this, click on the console, and press start to start this LXC container. LXC container started, so I can type root and the password that I provided, and now I can, for example, go and ping google.com. If I'm getting successful ping messages, it means gateway and DNS connection between this local virtual network. So between virtual network and my local network is working as the DNS resolver works and the internet communication works because I selected SNAT during the virtual network configuration. Then I can say, for example, let's update this. So I'm running apt update. I can see the package is getting downloaded and everything is great. Let's say if I'll go to open terminal inside this Linux Mint instant and try to ping 10.10.10.100, destination unreachable because I can't reach that. But this Linux Mint virtual machine IP address is ending 153 inside this LXC container that is inside virtual network. Can I ping that? 193, I do believe. Or was it 193? 153, sorry, 153. I can ping this. So virtual network will communicate with my local network, but my local network can't communicate to this virtual network unless you will try to run ping command from the same node where you're running this LXC container. So as you can see, pings are happening because this LXC container runs in node 1. But if I'll go to node 2 and I'll try to ping the same LXC container, I will get a message that says destination reachable. So basically right now is pretty much that is it with the Proxmox SDN configuration. You set up a virtual network, you create a virtual zone, virtual network, virtual subnet, you create an LXC container, etc., etc., and that's it. That's LXC container runs. What if you want to up this game? What you want to crank it to 11? What if you want to make sure that right now everything works, but everything needs to be more secure? So right now what I will start showing you is how to configure Proxmox firewall to make sure that, for example, LXC containers and VMs that runs inside the virtual network created by Proxmox SDE will not communicate with your local network. Proxmox Firewall will help you to isolate your virtual networks and just allow them to connect to internet and to each other, but not to your local network. So let's start setting up a Proxmox Firewall. I already done a video how to set a Proxmox Firewall, and some of the steps that I will show you now, it's going to be repetitive what was shown in that video before, but I do feel that I need to cover them again. Instead of sending you to another video to watch that and come back here, I'm just going to show the important steps again, just to make sure that you will fully understand why you're setting up these kind of things and why they are important. So number one thing what you need to do is to know that firewall inside of Proxmox works in 3 levels. And you can think this as a steps. The top level firewall rule is inside data center. The second one down level of firewall rules are located inside each nodes. And the last one is located inside each LXC container and VM. So to start all this, we need to enable the firewall at the top level, which is data center. But before going straight away in the firewall rules under options and turning this on, you need to make sure that there is firewall rules already set up here. Otherwise, by you switching the actual firewall rules straight away or firewall options straight away, you will lose connection to your Proxmox, because firewall, as you can see, import policy says drop. If I switch this on, I can't access this IP address or any of these nodes while they are linked to this data center, because by default input policy is drop, and I don't have anything whitelisted here. So let's start doing that. Most important rule that you need to set up inside data center firewall rules is to allow access to web GUI. So first rule is in accept VMBR. In my case, it's going to be VMBR 0, and this is because if I'll jump to a, let's say, node, let's say node, let's go to node. I click on a network. As you can see, this node is linked via VMBR 0, and next one is VMBR 0, and the last node VMBR 0. Is high likely you will get VMBR 0 unless you set up Proxmox in a very funky way that this will not be VMBR 0. But every time when I set up Proxmox for myself or my friends or anyone, they always comes up with VMBR 0. So now I'll go back to data center. Under firewall, I'm going to click add. In traffic in will be accepted if it comes via VMBR 0 with the protocol TCP, and destination is regardless of IP address, as long as it's port 8006. Once that's in, I'll click enable, click add, and that's it. This is the most important rule you need to set up to make sure that you will not get locked out from your Proxmox instance. Once this is set up, when this rule is created and is on, then I can go inside options, click on no, double click on the no option or firewall no option in that line, press tick, click OK. About in 5 seconds or so, the actual firewall gets triggered, and now if I refresh and I do see the dashboard, it's very good. That means the Proxmox rule working correctly, and I do get access as the firewall rule accepts the traffic in if a destination port is 8006. Next thing what you need to set up inside the data center firewall rule is DHCP and DNS requests. When you're creating a virtual machine or LXC container inside the virtual networks created by Proxmox SDN, those virtual machines and LXC containers will request the DHCP server to get the IP address, and all the communications and domain resolving will happen by DNS. Because we set up DNS mask queue inside a terminal and then we disabled, we still need to access that package to receive IP addresses. So basic DHCP requests will be happening. But right now, data center only accepts traffic in via web GUI, but not DHCP on DNS. So we need to set up that now. So next rule that we need to set up goes like this. Traffic in will be accepted if the macro will be DHCP. That is it. That's all we need is DHCP. I want DHCP in, and traffic will be accepted. And I can say right here, for example, DHCP requests. That's it, just to give it a bit of comment, and click add. And next rule I need to give is traffic in will be accepted, enable, if the macro protocol or macro request will be DNS. And again, let's say DNS requests, add. That's it. Those rules are important to have here in data center. I like to have the first one to be my VMBR, the access via DNS, via web GUI. Next one, DHCP, and then DNS. And that's it. These are three most important rules that you need, or this is a free rules. These are the free rules that you need to have inside data center, regardless if you're running Proxmox cluster or single node. These rules need to be set up to fully utilize the firewall rules, not to get locked out from a Proxmox instance, and to enable Proxmox SDN to function properly. So accept via web terminal, accept connection to a web GUI, accept the DHCP requests, and accept DNS requests. Next rule, what we need to set up is, if you're running Proxmox cluster, you need to allow communication between all these nodes. Right now, Proxmox firewall is enabled inside the data center, but if I'll go to the nodes, each nodes, as you can see, it's enabled by default, but there is no rules. So what will happen now, if I go to node 2, and I'll say, what's your IP address? It's ending with 21. I'll go to node 1, and I say ping 192.168.178.21. I'm trying to ping from node 1 to node 2. And as you can see, nothing is happening because firewall rule at the node level is switched on, but there is no rules set up to allow this communication. And what's happening right now, the communication stopped between these nodes. This is not a big deal if you're running free node cluster and all the storage is set up outside of your Proxmox cluster, like in my case is NFS. But if you're running Proxmox Ceph, you need to turn the next thing on, otherwise your communication between Ceph will not function, because Ceph needs to communicate between each node to synchronize the data. So what we need to do next, we need to go back to data center, and now click on the firewalls to expand this option and click aliases. An alias is the reason why we're going to set this up, is that you don't want to punch IP address over and over and over again. You just create an alias that you can pick up from a drop-down list. So this alias will be called localnet, and IP CIDR will be 192.168.178.0/24. So I'm creating the alias. That means that from a drop-down list, I can pick up the option local-net, which will represent this IP range. And this is IP range of all devices inside my local network. And I'm fine with that. You can specify just these three nodes, but for simplicity of this video, I'm just going to do this. So this means that local net will represent this. And while I'm here, I'll create a new one, which I will call gateway. And this will be the gateway of my real local network, not a virtualized one. And a gateway is usually your IP address, a local IP address ending with 1. And the last one, what I would suggest for you to create is the alias to cover all the Proxmox SDN IP addresses. So if I go back to Proxmox IPAM, I can see that it's 10, 10, 10, and then 100. So it means it's going to be 10, 10, 10, whatever. So under under firewall aliases, I click on that and I'll say virtual net. And this will represent 10, 10, 10.0/24. That's it. So this represents my gateway, local network IP range, and a virtual network IP range. Now I can go and start setting up very important thing, which is security groups. I know it's a lot of cover, but once you set this up, it's almost like you stop once and forget, and then you just pick from the options. So under security groups, I'm going to click on create, and this one I will call it local network, and let's say internal network communication. Create. So I created a local network, and inside local network, I'm going to create a rule. I'm going to say incoming traffic will be accepted while the source is local net and is enabled, and outgoing traffic is accepted as long as destination is local network. Click that. Okay, so pretty much what I just created here is I created the rule that allows traffic between local network devices into local network devices. And this is why we created aliases, because instead of punching the IP address over and over and over again, that's all I can do is just pick up from a drop-down list, local network, that's fine, I click OK. So next thing, I need to go inside this node, and under rules, click on that and say insert security group. I can pick from security group, which is internal network communication, which I just created. Turn that on. Go to node 2. Straight away jump to firewall. Insert security group. That's automatically picked up as there's only one inside the dropdown. Enable. Node 3. Firewall. Insert. Pick this up. Enable. Done. So all three nodes right now contain the same rule, which allows local network communication. Now if I'll go back to node 1 and try to ping node 2, as you can see, communication between node 1 and node 2 is working. And because we haven't specified the specific ports that are open, at this stage, any communication between node 1 and node 2, or between node 3 or node 2, each of these nodes can communicate to each other using whatever method they need, plus Ceph will function properly. So that's all fine and working. Now we need to go and set up the rules for our virtual machines and LXC containers inside Proxmox SDN. I click on a data center, scroll all the way down to security group, and create a new security group, which I'll call virtual network communication. Click create, and I click on a virtual network. And right now what I need to create here is, first thing, I click on add, and inside here I need to make sure that any virtual machine or LXC container that is running inside the virtual network has no access, as you can see, drop, no access to my destination, which is going to be local network. So all the LXC containers and VMs will not access my local network. Connection will be dropped. So that's set up, but there is a problem. And the problem is that we can't right now connect to internet, because if I made a connection to be dropped, if they're accessing the local network, it's going to be blocked. But internet connection between virtual network devices and basically internet goes via gateway, and the gateway is blocked. So right now we need to say out, accepted, if a destination is gateway, and enable. So right now the way it works is, and by the way, the order is very important, as a Proxmox firewall will go from top down. So first it will try to connect to internet. It says gateway accept. It will connect to internet, but it will try to access something else. It will bypass this because it's not the gateway IP address will be, or something else. It will be dropped. And the last option, what I want to do, and it's a bit more like for you to be optional, is I want to allow traffic into virtual network VMs and LXC containers if the source is local network. That means that I can access these devices within virtual network from any device, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Okay, so like I said, order is very important. I'm accepting the traffic in from local network. I'm accepting the traffic out to local network as long as it is a gateway. And a gateway, if I click on the alias, this is the IP address. So if the virtual machine or LXC container 1010, which is demo SDN 001, will try to access internet, it will go via 192.168.178.1. But if it will try to access something else, the connection will be blocked. And the last one is drop the connections. Like I said, the connection will be dropped. So now if I'll go back to this 10.10.10 LXC container, and let's try to SSH, for example, one of my production nodes inside Proxmox cluster, which will be, so if I'm going to say yes, SSH, so it's accessing the Frostfire node inside my Proxmox production cluster. So as you can see, I'm from this virtual LXC container inside the virtual network, I'm accessing this. I don't want that to happen. So what I'll do, I will exit that, and I'm back into demo SDN. If I'll try again, as you can see, it's asking for password. I will connect, but exit again. Now I'll go into firewall. I'll say options. I will switch that on. We'll go to firewall and I'll add security group, which I called virtual network communication. Enable, add. Go back inside the console of this LXC container, and I was able to connect to this to this Proxmox node. But if I'll try to do now, as you can see, I'm not getting any password prompts because connection is stopped or connection is dropped, as I gave a rule inside my Proxmox cluster to drop the connection if you're trying to access local network, which represents alias, which is that. But if you're trying to access the internet, you should be fine. So click back to this on the console. I'm going to ping google.com. No problem. Google's going. Apt update. Update packages getting downloaded. What if I'm going to try to ping, for example, the gateway? That's fine. Gateway can be accessed. But what if I'm going to try to ping my Proxmox node? I can't. What if I want to ping, for example, my NAS? I can't access NAS either. So that's it. With the rule, we blocked the access from virtual network into my local network. Next thing, what we can do, for example, is let's create a new virtual machine or new LXC container, which we're going to call like that. Hostname 1010, or it's going to be 11.11.11, and it's going to be SDN test. Let's create one more template. Let's do 22. Here we go. This doesn't matter. CPU memory will just jump. Now I'll create the VNet, DHCP, DNS is fine. It's fine. Convert, start after created. And right now I'm creating a second LXC container. I'll jump straight away into data center. Scroll down to click on the IPAM below SDN. This will receive IP address 1.101. I click on this in the console. It's already started, so I'm going to log in. I'll do IP-A. As you can see, IP address is selected. I'm going to try ping the first LXC container, which is 10.10.10.100. And connection, as you can see, is not working as there is no communication between these two networks. We're missing one Proxmox rule or Proxmox firewall rule. So I'll go back inside the Proxmox firewall under security, virtual networks. So in is fine, out is fine. That's what we set up. Next, I need to set up add incoming traffic. If a source is virtual network, I want to accept that. And outgoing traffic, if a destination is virtual network, I want to accept that. Click add. So I added two extra rules into this list, which allows virtual network communication or communication between virtual network to be accepted. Out is accepted if you go into there, and is accepted if the data comes from here, which is virtual network, and then we left the rest of them. Now I'll go back to LXC container and try to ping the first one. As you can see, ping is happening. If I click on the first one and try to ping the second LXC container, which is like that, connection is working. Still, we have a little problem. If I click on PVE node 1 and I try to ping 10.10.10.101, connection is working. But if I click on node 2, 10.10.10, like this, for example, I can't because, oh sorry, I forgot to add the ping. As you can see, because these two are hosted on here. So the beauty right now of this virtual network is, yes, you have all these LXC containers within its virtual network and its only communication happens on there. What you can do, for example, I can go inside SDN test, shut this device down. So I'm shutting down this LXC container, click on the networks and add additional network adapter, which will be VMBR. I will call this ETH1. I want DHCP to happen and click add. So now I have ETH0, which belongs to virtual network, and ETH1, which belongs to proper virtual network or proper network of the Proxmox. So now I'm starting this. Let's wait for this to happen. Under console, let's wait for LXC container to start. And let's try to find out what IP address it received. So root. So IP address it received is ending with 185. Now inside Proxmox node 1, I can say ping 192.168.170.185. I'm getting requests, I'm getting the result. I go to node 2, try to ping the same IP address. And as you can see, it's getting in. And node 3 will do the same thing, as right now one LXC container only has the simple network, which is virtualized, and another one has this. So you can communicate between these two LXC containers to each other, but only this container has option to receive a connection from anywhere in a local network. Even right now, I'll go to the terminal inside Linux Mint and say ping 192.168.178.185, and it does work perfectly. But what if, let's say, you don't want to have a virtual network? You can follow my guide how to set up Tailscale inside the LXC container. So what you can do, you can create an LXC container with a Tailscale client to connect via Tailscale, but then that LXC container can be added into a virtual network. So you will be able to access this virtual network behind the Proxmox SDN, behind the firewalls, via the Tailscale. And the very amazing thing about all this, you can have all your virtual machines and all your LXC containers all being hosted inside the Proxmox node cluster behind Proxmox SDN, which makes them not visible inside the local network. As right now, let's say I do have option from this virtual Linux Mint to ping my NAS. But what if that NAS LXC container or Plex or something else was hosted behind the Proxmox SDN? I will not be able to actually connect to them. So my home lab will be hidden from basically everyone except me, as if I have an option to connect via Tails. And that is it. I think I covered everything what is possibly to cover inside this video. I hope I gave you enough information for you to go and play around with SDN. You can, for example, another thing I just thought about, you can set up, for example, Pi-hole inside the LXC container behind the Proxmox SDN. So all the LXC containers and virtual machines inside that virtual zone will go and do a traffic or do the communication to a DNS server, which will be Pi-hole, which then you will be able to block or unblock the traffic. You can use Pi-hole as a DHCP server. You can virtualize OpenSense Firewall OS inside the virtual machine behind Proxmox SDN, and all the other virtual machines and LXC containers getting connection to the internet via that OpenSense Firewall OS. The sky is the limit for you to how you want to set it up, and there is no limit. As far as I know, there is no limit how many virtual networks you can create. If you want, you can create 50 of them and just go nuts and start messing around. The most important thing, for me, the Proxmox SDN, is that I can go and start virtualizing the same structure as my local network is inside the Proxmox SDN, and then going and trying new things, trying new configurations, and to see how it behaves. And if it breaks, it breaks. I'm just going to restore it or just recreate a new one. If I will start going and messing around with my local network, and if it breaks, first of all, my missus will not be happy, then my kid will not be happy, and then I'm going to have to sit till late night, 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, just to trying to figure out how to fix my local network. With Proxmox SDN, like I said, if it goes bad, it goes bad. I'm just press the button and restore everything. So that is it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in below the description in the comment section. All the links that you need to know, all the additional information that will help you to understand Proxmox SDN, I leave all the links in the description below, just below the like button. And that is it. I appreciate if you watched till the end of this video. And like always, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.